Hello everyone and welcome back to another Stormworks video. In today's video we are going to be showing you how to add a altitude hold system to your helicopter here in Stormworks. We'll go through all the components that you need as always, along with how to wire them up and then a couple different use cases for it. So that all said, we'll go ahead and get started. So you can see in front of me, I've gone ahead and just loaded up the starter helicopter, which is provided in-game by the devs. Now, a couple of different things we need to talk about. First off is PIDs themselves. Now, I have covered this a couple in the other tutorials very lightly. However, I'll go a little bit more into detail today about the PIDs themselves. First off, what the PIDs do. PIDs pretty much take two inputs. One is going to be a set point and one is going to be a variable. For the purpose of this tutorial, our set point is going to be where we want to be, so our altitude where we want to be at. Our variable is going to be where we currently are of our altitude. So for example, when we're on the ground, we have altitude of 0. Along with that, what it does is it takes those two inputs, works out an equation, which is pretty much the set point minus the variable, and outputs an error. That error is going to be your output of the PID, and then controls, in this tutorial, are up and down of the actual rotor to bring us up or down in altitude. Now, the PID themselves, I've already gone and placed on all of the components, and I'll quickly just go over everything first of all. So we've got the PID down connected first. We've gone ahead and connected our keypad, which is going to be our input for our altitude where we want to be at, which is our set point. We've gone ahead and connected up. Our variable that's going to be happening in this video is going to be our altitude. So we've connected up our altitude to the actual variable itself. We've then gone and taken the output, which is the error, connected that to our gyro, and of course our gyro is then connected to our actual up and down, which is connected to the collective of the rotor itself. And then I've gone ahead and added a couple different digital displays just to give us the readout of the actual PID controller itself, and also to give the readout of the altitude, so we can obviously measure the two and see what the difference is. We obviously want our error rate to be at a nice 0 once we've reached our set point, and then we're also going to want our altitude to be at 10 because we set it at 10, for example. Now, going into configuring this, obviously depending on how big or whatever your helicopter is going to be, it might change. So I'll quickly just break this down into a couple different equations. First off, proportional gain is going to be our present of the error. So wherever we currently are at that exact moment in time. Integral gain is going to be looking at the past errors of the actual system itself. And derivative gain is going to be looking at the future errors of the system itself. So first off, proportional gain is going to be very good for getting us from 0 to 100. So say, for example, our set point, we want altitude to be at 100. It's then going to take us from 0 to 100 by timesing our error by our value over here. Integral gain is going to be very good for obviously then once we've reached our target, instead of just saying, okay, PID, you don't need to do any more, provide a 0. We want obviously our integral gain. What it does is it takes our past errors, adds it all up together, and then produces an output. So we will actually maintain that altitude instead of constantly going up and then dropping down, up and dropping down. It will actually then eventually level out and tell us, hey, we actually need, for example, a 0.1 output to constantly maintain at a set point of 10 or 100, for example. The derivative gain, last point, is going to, as I said, is going to be the future part of the error. So this is going to be good for measuring how far or how close we are to our set point. So if we're very far from it, it's going to tell us, hey, you need a long way to go, so you need to work quite good. Or if we're very close to it, hey, you need to slow down. So think of it as like dampening or braking of the error rate itself. Now, all these values that you enter in here are going to be what you're multiplying it by. So whatever your error rate is, it multiplies it by whatever value you put here. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I found that a proportional gain of 1. So if we have an error of 100, it's going to put out an error of 100 to our rotor to go up. The integral gain is 0.0001. I found this works well because obviously you're going to say, hey, well, every time you've read the error being 100, 90, 80, 70, you're taking all that, adding it together, timesing it by 0.01, and then that's going to be our figure that's going to be able to maintain us at a certain level. And derivative gain is 10, so say if our error is going to be 100, or when we've actually eventually reached our positioning point of, say, 100 meters, our error rate is going to probably be 0.1. We then timesing that by 10, and that's going to then increase us a little bit more just to get to that final set point of 100. So that all said, and we've got everything connected up, and we've tuned our PID all correctly, connected all the power up, and go ahead and actually spawn it in. Now, as it is currently, I've got it set up, is that we can't actually control the helicopter by manual input. It only works by our actual altitude hold here. So we'll go ahead, turn the helicopter on, enable auto hover, give it some throttle, start the engine up. You can see, obviously, because we have this by default set to 0, it automatically wants us to go down, because obviously it's reading now our altitude is currently at the moment 6, our set point is 0, so it's then giving us an error rate of -6. If we were to go ahead and give it a set point of 10 altitude, you can see now error jumped up to 3, and then eventually we'll set off at a more or less just below 0, and you can see our altitude is 0.83. You can obviously go ahead and configure this to as much as you want, doing slight modifications, either increasing, decreasing, so on and so forth. And I'll quickly just touch base with the actual tweaking of it. Is I recommend you start with obviously working on with everything as 0. You work with your proportional gain, and you slowly start to figure out until you get it to where the point where it's not overshooting and it's not underperforming. So it's getting to the point you want to get it and the speed that you want it to get it at, and it's not overshooting it, so it's not going up and down, up and down. However, it's a little bit more flimsy. Your integral gain, you want to add it, and so that you start actually eventually leveling off to a certain point. So you start with a low value and you work way up. And then same goes with the tariff gain, is that once you're happy with the first 2, you slowly start to add, for example, I would start with 0.1, working up to, for example, a 1, working up then to a 10 and 100 and so on and so forth, until you get to a point that you're actually happy with. And then you'll obviously see at the end, it will actually slowly start to measure off, and that's how you go about actually tweaking this. I'll go ahead and just start this up, give it a little throttle, give it say 10 altitude, and you can see it jumps up, and now it's reacting too fast, so you can see it's jumping up and down way too fast. So we need to actually go ahead and just alter that and reduce it a little bit more. But that's pretty much the basics. I'm not going to get into more detailing about setting up the PID itself. You can see it's kind of sitting at a nice level now. I will be bringing out a tutorial in the future how to completely configure a PID and the exact indications of how to work that. But lastly, if you did want to go ahead and obviously still have a manual control system and still have an altitude control system, you could simply go ahead and add a switch gate to the system itself. So you could say, I'm just going to place it there for right now, add a toggle button to that. So we'll go ahead and add a toggle switch over here and say, hold on, when this is off, you want our control coming from the seat to be working. When the system is being turned on, you want the control coming from the PID to go ahead and control our up and down. This means we can now switch between manual input and obviously the PID, which will be automatic inputs to control the system to go up and down. So that all said, I won't get into it any further. We'll go ahead and end the video today over there. I think that pretty much covers the basics of how to go ahead and add an altitude system to your helicopter. As I said, I will bring out another video covering PIDs in more detail, but this gives you the general idea and hopefully gives you the knowledge of how to go ahead and add a system to your own helicopter. So that all said, we'll go ahead and end the video there. As always, I hope you found it somewhat informative and useful. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and please comment below what you would like to go ahead and see in future videos. As I said in a couple of videos ago, we'll be starting to create a couple new series and maybe start thinking about a couple different games adding to the channel. But once again, go ahead, let me know in the comments below what you think, any comments, any suggestions for future videos, and then we'll go ahead and we'll see you in the next one.